All right, let's just dive right in. If you've ever been even a little curious about programming, I guarantee you've heard of Python. We're going to go on this little journey to see how you can get from like square one, your very first line of code, all the way to building something real, something you can actually use. But let's start with the big question. Why Python? I mean, there are tons of programming languages out there, right? So what's the big deal with this one? Why is it always at the top of the charts as one of the most used and most loved languages in the world? Well, the answer, it's actually surprisingly simple. It really boils down to this fantastic idea. Think about it. Python is like the most patient teacher you could ever imagine. It literally never gets tired. It never gets frustrated when you mess up, and we all mess up, right? It's just always there ready for you to try again. And that's what makes it such an amazing place for anyone to start. So our journey has to start at the very, very beginning, the absolute basics. Before you can build anything cool, you got to learn the language. And the first word, the first concept you really need to grasp is something called a variable. Just think of a variable like a storage container with a label on it. Super simple. When you type x equals 2, you're basically saying, hey, computer, make me a box, stick the label x on it, and put the number 2 inside. That's it. From then on, you just use x. It's a core idea in, well, all programming, but this is where Python starts to get really, really clever. So what kind of thing did we just put in that box? A number? Some text? In a lot of other languages, you actually have to tell the computer beforehand. You have to be super specific. But Python? Nah. It's got this cool feature called dynamic typing. It just looks at what you put in the box and figures it out all by itself. No extra work for you. And this is exactly what I mean. If you give it a 2, Python goes, okay, that's a whole number, an integer. But if you give it 2.0, well, that decimal point tells Python it's something different, a float. And then if you put that same 2 inside quotes, it's not a number at all anymore. Now it's text, or what we call a string. The fact that Python does all this for you just makes getting started so much easier. It just feels natural. Okay, so we've got our little storage boxes. We can store stuff. Great. But what happens when your program isn't just 1 or 2 lines? What happens when it's hundreds? You're suddenly facing a huge new problem. How do you keep it all organized? How do you stop it from turning into a complete tangled disaster? Well, programmers have this really important rule, a core philosophy called DRY. It stands for don't repeat yourself. Basically, if you catch yourself typing the same lines of code again and again, stop. There's almost always a smarter way to do it. And in Python, that smarter way is called a function. A function is just a custom tool that you build for yourself. You define it one time, that's the def part. You give it a set of instructions, and then you tell it what result to return or give back when it's all done. So now, anytime you need that specific job done, you just call your new tool by its name instead of rewriting all the code. And what's so cool here is you can actually see this process in action. The main program on the left calls the function. And look, Python creates this whole separate temporary space just for that function to do its thing. It runs the calculation, sends the answer back to the main program, and poof, that temporary space is gone. It keeps everything so clean and tidy. Okay, so making your own tools is awesome, but what happens when your project gets really big? I mean, you don't want to have to build everything from scratch, right? You don't want to reinvent the wheel for every little task. That's when you bring in tools that other people have already built. And that brings us to modules. I love how the source material describes them with the French phrase boîte à outils, a toolbox, because that's exactly what it is. It's a file packed with pre-made functions. Need to do some complex math? Just import the math module. Need a random number? Import random. It's like having this giant, shared workshop of tools at your fingertips. But let's say you're not just fixing something. You're trying to build a whole house. A toolbox isn't going to cut it. You need more. You need a prefabricated workshop with all the big machines and the assembly lines already set up. And that, in the world of programming, is what we call a framework. So which one do you pick? Well, here's the thing. There is no single best one. It's all about picking the right tool for the job. It's just like choosing a vehicle, isn't it? You wouldn't take a tiny little sports car on a big family camping trip. It wouldn't make sense. So it really all comes down to what you're trying to build. If you need a big, serious website with user accounts and a back office, you'll probably want Django. It's the batteries included option. But maybe you just need to whip up a quick prototype or a simple API? Then Flask is your friend.
It's fast and much simpler. And if you need something incredibly small, like a tiny service that fits in one file, Bottle's about as minimal as you can possibly get.
But what if features aren't your main concern? What if all you care about is speed? Just raw, blistering speed. We're talking about applications that have to handle thousands or even millions of requests per second. For that kind of high-traffic job, you need a different kind of beast altogether. And this chart really shows you that speed difference in a nutshell. You can see Falcon, a framework that's built for pure speed, is just way faster. We're talking 2 to 5 times faster than Flask for this kind of task. And how does it do that? Simple. It strips away all the extra bells and whistles. It's that classic trade-off you see all the time in technology. Do you want more features or do you want more speed? And, well, that brings our journey full circle. We started with just a single line of code, and now we've walked through the biggest ideas: variables, functions, grabbing toolboxes with modules, and even picking out a whole workshop with frameworks. You've basically got the roadmap now. So, what can you actually do with all this? Well, just look at this stuff. You can create fun little animations, you can generate these beautiful, incredibly complex pieces of mathematical art, you can analyze data, or, yeah, you can go out and build the next great web application. The possibilities are kind of endless. So, you have the tools, you have the blueprints. There's really only one question left, and it's the most exciting one of all. What are you going to build first? The journey is yours.